One of the hardest things to nail in a track can be an amazing break, build, and drop. Well, today I'm going to show you how to go from this.
You're on my mind, each and every time. You're on my mind.
To this.
You're on my mind. You're on my mind. You're on my you're on my you're on my you're on my mind. You're on my you're on my you're on my you're on my mind. Each and every time.
Let's do it.
Sun in the sky, you know how I feel.
Hey guys, Dilby here. Welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to show you how to pimp your breakdowns, your build-ups and your drops. I do monthly feedback streams on the channel and I get to hear a lot of tracks from a lot of different producers. And something that I notice people tend to struggle with is creating really nice, seamless breakdowns, build-ups and drops. So in today's video I'm going to show you some really cool techniques that you can do utilizing the elements in your track to create more tension and release. Just quickly, if you like the track that you can hear playing in the background, it's a new one of mine. There's a link in the description to Beatport and Spotify, all of that good stuff. Your support is much appreciated. And as always, if you want to download the project files from this video, there's a link in the description to Patreon. Patreon's one of the best ways that you can help support the channel and make sure I keep bringing you these videos every week. Now let's jump into Ableton and do this thing. Alright, so here we are inside Ableton and I've put together a little project with a kind of fake breakdown and drop. At the moment, it pretty much sucks, but I'm trying to make something that's like amateur version and we'll try and turn it into a bit more of a pro version. Alright, so this is how the drop sounds. And then we've got this breakdown.
You're on my mind. You're on my mind. Each and every time. You're on my mind. You're on my mind. Each and every time. You're on my mind.
So pretty linear, boring kind of break and build. This is not exactly, it's a bit exaggerated, but there's not much detail in it, but it's kind of similar to something that I might get sent to one of my feedback sessions, and something that I just kind of hear where the breakdown is just kind of linear. Often actually what people will do is bring out the kick and the bass and maybe a lot of the drums. So like,
you're on my mind.
You know, maybe even without this open hat.
You're on my mind.
Yeah.
You're on my mind. You're on my mind. Each and every time. You're on my mind.
It's pretty boring in my opinion. Like, it's just kind of sitting there. There's not much to dance to if you think about it in the context of being in the club. So when I'm thinking about how to make a breakdown, how to make a build, and how to make a drop, I'm really trying to think of that in the context of the club, like of people on the dance floor dancing. How are they going to interact with the record? How does it feel when you're on the dance floor and there's a 1 minute break where all the drums and the bass come out and it's just a vocal playing or with a high string? It's boring, you know, and it creates tension, but not in a good way. So what we're going to do is try and dive into this and figure out some techniques that we can do to make it kind of more interesting. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually extend the kick drum a little bit longer here. Same with the claps, same with all of this. So I'm going to bring the drums a little bit further along. Same with the bass. The reason I'm going to do that is because on my drum bus here, I've got this auto filter. So I'm going to turn that on and I'm going to automate it so that it turns off here. So that means what we can do is add some automation whereby the drums come down.
You're on my mind. Each and every time. You're on my mind.
You know, so that as the breakdown is progressing, the drums are getting more and more filtered out, right? Then, now I might even bring this further along to here. Then what we can do is use this filter to sweep it back up.
You're on my mind. You're on my mind. You're on my mind. Each and every time. You're on my mind. You're on my mind. Each and every time. You're on my mind.
Alright, so that's already an improvement in my opinion, because you've got some kind of movement in there, coming down in the break and it's coming up in the build. So this filter corresponds to like this snare roll. Now I've got this reverb send here, which is just a big long reverb here, 60 seconds, crazy stuff. So what we can do is use that on the drums as well. So from the build, put a marker here, set marker, right? So we've got our break coming down and then we've got our build coming up. This is quite full on, so we don't want to bring it all, if we bring it all the way up, it's just going to be crazy. So we want it to be intense but subtle. So that's going to sound now like this.
Each and every time you're on my mind. You're on my mind.
So that's going to get annoying. But you can hear it kind of makes this like white noise rushing effect. It's like having a riser in there, but it's created using the drums. So it sounds very kind of natural and like it's supposed to be in the track. So what we can also do here, if we have like all of the same things playing here and here, I've got these extra loops, these rides and this top loop. But what we could do for an extra little effect is try taking out this open hat. So we're trying to create movement and differentiation here, right? So when it comes down,
you're on my mind.
Okay, so that's coming down a bit too fast, a bit too much probably.
You're on my mind. Each and every time you're on my mind.
You don't really notice there that the open hat disappears because it's already being filtered out. But now when it comes up, the open hat's not going to be there, but still the high end from this closed hat and this tambourine is going to be there.
You're on my mind.
So then when it drops in, all right, so that's enough for the drums for now. So what we're trying to do here is make everything kind of dynamic. All right, so the next thing I want to do is work with the vocal a little bit. So I'm going to duplicate this track and I'll just delete everything on there. At this point here is to start kind of looping the vocal or something like that to be a bit more interesting, create a bit more tension. Let's bring this down here.
You're on my mind. You're on my mind. You're on my mind. You're on my mind.
I might just do this.
You're on my.
Okay, so I've just created a little fade there so you can't hear the first bit of the from the mind.
You're on my.
Then at this point here, we could do You're on my mind. All right, so I'm going to actually even bring this stuff up closer. At this point, I'm not going to bring the kicks up because we want to take out even more low end. I'm not going to bring the bass up. I'll bring this melodic part up. Okay, let's have a listen to how this sounds.
You're on my. 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 You're on my mind. You're on my. You're on my. You're on my.
Actually, what we could do is maybe put this more frequently. So have it here. So there's a bit of trial and error to this, right? I can duplicate that. Looks good.
You're on my mind. You're on my. You're on my. You're on my. You're on my mind. Each and every time you're on my mind.
Okay, so one other thing I thought is in this breakdown section, we can create a bit more tension.
You're on my.
Okay, so we can use this, delete this. So we're trying to create differentiation with the vocal here.
You're on my. You're on my mind. You're on my. You're on my mind. You're on my. Each and every time.
Right, let's take that out. Okay, so it's a little bit of kind of trying to get this to line up the way we want. I might need to switch these around. There we go.
You're on my mind. You're on my. You're on my. You're on my mind. Each and every time.
Maybe.
You're on my mind. You're on my. You're on my mind. Each and every time. You're on my mind.
Okay, cool. So there's totally trial and error to this.
You're on my.
So how frequently have we got that? Yeah, so we're trying to increase the tension as we go.
You're on my mind. Each and every time you're on my mind.
Okay, so that's getting better. We're building up, we're adding intensity as it goes, right? Now what I want to do is grab this snare roll, take the end of it off. So we've got some space here.
Each and every time you're on my mind.
We might even be able to take it back here, because we want to create a moment before this drop.
You're on my mind. Each and every time you're on my mind.
Now I think it's going to be cooler without this, so let's listen to this.
You're on my mind. Each and every time.
You see how holding that silence there creates tension, it creates anticipation for the beat to drop in, and because there's it creates dynamics in the track as well, because there's no low end, there's actually nothing almost happening, just the tails of the reverb and things happening here, and then this drops in full, the track is really full, it's got the full bass, it's got the full highs, it's got everything going on, but we've created a switch as well, where we've taken away this string that's happening, we've taken away the vocal, right? So everything has kind of changed. It's dynamic in multiple senses of the word, but we can do more. So what I'm going to do on this Vox group, I'm going to add a bass clef easy washout. So if you go to Bassclef's website, you can download this for free, I believe. I think you need to sign up for his newsletter or his podcast or something like that. So this is going to it's got a bunch of things under the hood, delays and reverbs and filters and whatnot.
You're on my mind. You're on my mind. You're on my mind. Each and every time.
Cool. So in context.
You're on my mind. Each and every time.
So there we're adding another layer to the dynamics. It's happening based on an element in the track, so it sounds really natural. What I can also do, duplicate this delay outside of this effect rack. This delay is actually already applied to the vocal, but it's in a parallel way. So it's happening alongside the dry vocal and it's being ducked by the dry vocal. So it's more of a mixing thing, trying to fit the vocal into the track. For this one, I'm going to turn the dry wet right down so you can't hear it if the vocal's playing further in the track. But here, I'm going to start bringing it in, and here, I'll bring it out.
You're on my mind. 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 Each and every time.
So it helps to create tension. It's creating the vocals getting a bit more crazy, right? And then it also helps to really emphasize this when the delay disappears. Okay, we can do more. So what I might do is after here, I'm going to create a new MIDI track. I'll color it red for drums because that's how we do it. I'll call this snare riser. I'll call this fill. Let's go to Underground Shades of House. It's my sample pack. I've used a bunch of sounds from it in here, and here's a link where you can grab it. Sounds, one shots, drums, clap. So we're looking for a really hard kind of clap. Maybe that one.
You're on my mind. Each and every time.
And now let's try and fit in a simple clap fill. Okay, we might end up changing the clap.
Every time.
I could even just take those two out.
every time, every time.
So just again, trial and error. So I'm just pressing 0 on my keyboard to turn those MIDI notes on and off, in case you're wondering. Cool, I think that's it. Now let's just try a different sound. That's a bit more like what we're looking for. Might even just pull that down and
Every time.
And then I will add some overdrive. Let's send it to a bit of reverb and add a little bit of pan randomization.
Every time.
Cool. So now let's hear this.
You're on my mind. You're on my mind. Each and every time.
All right, not 100% with that fill, maybe even take out that. If we put too many notes in the fill, then it takes away from this kind of silence thing. You know what I'm going to do?
Every time.
I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to put a big reverb on here. Yeah, about 50% wet, big decay, bit less wet, bit less decay. Okay, let's hear that.
Each and every time.
Cool. I'm just going to freeze that and we can flatten it. So the reason to flatten it is that if we want to change the timing or something, we can easily do that.
Every time.
But I think just like that is good. Okay, we'll just turn it down a little bit as well.
Each and every time.
Let's get a bit of delay and reverb on this crash. So in case you're wondering, these are just from my template. I'll link a video up here where you can check out my template in full. I think it's a really beneficial workflow step to set up a template that's got a bunch of like utility effects in here. So I've got a drum reverb, a room reverb or hall, this effects reverb that we're using on the drums, and then I've got a couple of different delays, a dotted eighth note ping pong and a quarter note ping pong. So I can just easily send things to them. Because they're in my template, I always know which is which. So it just makes everything super fast and easy. All right, next thing we can do is work on this pluck a little bit. Cool, it's fine, but it's kind of here and it's here. Same. So let's make it a bit different. So what can we do? We can use the filter frequency and automate it. We could even start it here. Cool. Now we can do something like with the delay, like we did before. Increase the delay a bit and increase the feedback. That will be cool. Cool, so that's going to help with this transition here. Help to have some sounds like ringing out across this moment of silence. Let's put a marker here, and what should we call this? Maybe like pre-drop. Okay, the next thing I want to do is automate the release of the envelope. So this is the amplification envelope. Cool, easy stuff. So we've also got this string. An easy win we can do with this is just to automate the volume a little bit. Let's even see there, I'll turn up the release a bit. A little bit more release. Cool. Okay, next thing I want to do is on my kick and bass bus, I'm going to grab another bass clef rack. I think you can also download this one for free. You definitely can from his website. I'm pretty sure it's the signing up to a podcast thing that I said before. I've had these for a while and I use them quite a lot. So I want automation here. And as I turn this up, so I'll just solo kick and bass. You can see it's filtering it out. It's putting this kind of little slapback delay on it, adding a bit of reverb. So that's going to really add to this kind of drama.
You're on my mind. 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 Each and every time.
Let's even take this conga out here. Okay, now we can also automate the snare riser. I've done a whole video on kind of tuning your snare risers pro. I'll link that up here as well. But some easy wins we can do is add a bit of pan randomization. I love this thing. Just adds a slight bit of movement in the width. We can add some reverb. Okay, with the sound itself, I'm going to take this frequency and I'm going to bring it up here. So now it's just playing more of the highs. And as this is coming in and getting louder, so I'll add that here. So the more of the low end is coming in as well. You can bring this down even more. So it's getting even more intense. Let's get this reverb coming up for the last bit. Cool. Now we could even automate this pan randomization. We can try at least.
Each and every time.
I think it was a bit extreme on the pan randomization, so we'll bring that down a little bit, but interesting. And one last thing I might do is automate the highs here. So we can do that here so it doesn't come in so abruptly.
You're on my mind. Each and every time. You're on my mind. 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 Each and every time.
So also by adding reverb to all of these elements, we're kind of creating this washy effect that really contrasts with the drop here. So a big thing that we're trying to do is create contrast and like drama, which creates the tension and release. So by having this section really wet, we are like creating tension, it's getting more dramatic. And then by having the drop really dry without all the reverb and stuff, we're creating like contrast. This pre-section creates anticipation, and this break section where we're kind of building down helps to kind of, so if you imagine it's playing from here, let me take this, put it here, maybe we put this here, or put this.
You're on my You're on my mind. You're on my You're on my mind.
Then let's put this in here.
Each and every time. You're on my You're on my mind. You're on my You're on my mind. Each and every time. You're on my mind. You're on my You're on my You're on my You're on my mind. You're on my You're on my You're on my You're on my mind. You're on my You're on my You're on my You're on my mind. You're on my You're on my You're on my You're on my mind. Each and every time. You're on my
Nice, there we go. If you want to grab this project file, you can do so from the link in the description to Patreon. There's this project file and like loads of other project files on there. Doesn't matter what style you do, as long as it's some kind of deeper style of house and techno, then there's probably a bunch of stuff in there that are going to really interest you. So check it out.
It's a new mind.
All right, there we go. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. What's your best tip for build-ups and breakdowns? What do you do that works every time? Let us know. And if you're looking for something to watch next, then check out this. I think you're going to like it. That's it from me today. We'll catch you next time. Peace.